Hello and welcome to In the Room, a unique interview series exploring the craft, the journeys from artists from BAME and LGBT communities. We are so excited to be joined by Strictly Come Dancing champion, actor and presenter Ore Oduba. How are you?
Dom. Hiya, Dom. I'm good. It's good to be talking with you, mate. It's good to talk to anyone, to be honest, right now. It's nice to extend it beyond the other two people in my house. Though I love them, it has been a long time, you know?
Yeah. It's been some time because we worked together was it September? We did.
Don't! Oh my gosh, that feels like
August.
a lifetime ago. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it was August. I remember going down to Fulham and we were in a room that we did quite a lot of rehearsal for Strictly in, and
Wow.
meeting you. And it was the first time I'd been in a rehearsal room since March, and I didn't. It felt like a little glimmer of hope actually, because we had an amazing time working together.
Yeah.
And actually just going through some movements and some dialogue, and humming a few tunes, and it was really nice. And it felt, after the summer had been so sparse and there was like kind of no hope, it was like a little glint for me that felt like, okay, this stuff really still exists. It's still there. People were still hunting for that feeling that we get when we're on stage and when we're in the room. And I loved it. That was now 8 months ago. So here's hoping that it was the start of something that's still to come. But yeah, it was a while ago.
Who knows? There's nothing special than being in the room with artists and things like obviously with lockdown we've been locked down and we've had quite limited ways of creating theatre. How have you found this experience being in lockdown? Have you been able to create new things or still be able to sing and have a form of artistry?
Yeah, artistry, possibly not so much. The thing that I find it really difficult in my house, and before we started recording this, I joked about the relationship I have with my wife. It is 100% 24 karat loving. But I guess after a time, you do start to, and I guess what the balance I've always found it difficult to work at home. I think that's the essence of it, because at home is home. And as far, I spent a lot of before lockdown, I spent the last 12 months before that away on the road with shows. Generally work takes me away anyway.
Yeah.
So when I come home, I'm worked out. This is home. This is time to spend with my family. It's time to completely dedicate to them, because it's been one or the other, So I really struggle when the idea of being at home and working and creating, because I kind of can't. I find it hard to split my brain. I find it hard to because my first port of call is always my family. I do all of my work for them. I try to keep a roof over our heads for them, and so they're the first thing in my consciousness. So if I'm at home and the first thing I think about is my family, but I also really need to work and create, something's going to be compromised, and I find it hard to compromise my my fam. So sadly, work sometimes is a little shoddier. No, but with what we do, because it's in many ways it can be quite abstract. A lot of it's in your head and you're thinking through, you're going through thought processes. Even if it was just learning lines, I learn lines quite silently. So if you're sitting there next to your husband who is being quiet, in his head he's going through his lines. In your head you're like, what's you doing? You're just wasting time. The bins need taken out, man. So I find it hard to do the sort of the creative, the fun, imaginatory things that I really love doing that's brought me to this world. I find that hard to do at home. But over lockdown, we kind of try to find a few boundaries and draw a few lines, make a bit more of a schedule so that we know, okay, I'm upstairs, so it means I'm out of action, which means I'm working, whatever it is. I mean, it's nearly a year. I'm still struggling to do it. Like I said, home means home. Yeah. But we're trying. The other day they went out for a walk and I busted out a few tunes in the kitchen. The acoustic is really nice in there.
Yeah.
And my wife came back and said, "What have you been up to?" Which she always does. It's like, "What do you think I've been doing? Lying on my bum, naked? I've been doing stuff. There's stuff to do." And I said, "Oh, I've been singing a bit." She said, "Oh, I bet the whole street got that." It's like, yeah, they
Of
did,
course.
because I was singing out. I was singing out.
So you're
Okay,
singing with
deal
your
with it.
chest. You were going for it. I can imagine. I think it's beautiful to see you've got such a wonderful like family environment, and you're so committed, and you've been able to balance creativity with and work with family life. I wonder, what was your first experience of family life? Did you grow up in the United Kingdom? What was that experience like?
Yeah, my parents are from Nigeria, so but I've always been brought up in the UK.
Right.
From when I was 3, I think we moved over when I was 3. So from a really early age, I actually don't remember like living in Lagos.
Cool.
But we would always frequent. So whether it was summer holidays or Christmases, in fact, it was always summer holidays and Christmases. We would go back to Nigeria. But yeah, born and bred in the UK. And yeah, we had a fairly standard middle England life, I guess, really. I had quite a lot of privileges. We went to an amazing school, had an amazing upbringing, and actually my secondary, well, actually, no, both schools. So for me, I wasn't always the most academic. I would always try to, the things that I found really exciting and really interesting were outside of the classroom, were
Oh,
either on a sports field or, as it actually was on stage. And when I was, because there were always the things that were kind of, it was almost like a hobby, I guess, at school. It wasn't something structured. We did have drama classes, but in many ways they were kind of those exercises that we do now as warm ups.
okay.
If in a, whether it's kind of those improv sessions,
Yeah.
or when kids, it's just being comfortable with being close and making a fool of yourself and doing silly things. So
Right.
that was kind of our drama lessons. We weren't sort of making a huge story arcs or anything like that aged 8, but we were having fun, and that was the thing that I got really, really attracted to from a really early age. So when I was able to, I spent a lot of time doing those drama productions, and that carried on into my second school. And we were so fortunate because our school actually had a theatre at the school.
Uh-huh.
So I did a theatre studies class up to GCSE, and I loved it. I loved it. I loved it so much that I actually stopped studying theatre going into sixth form because I just wanted to have the fun of being on stage. So I carry on doing school performances and house performances and pantos and all those kind of things. But I didn't want to necessarily bog myself down with the literature and the I guess the real it's the stuff that the history of it all that makes it really important. But for me as a teenager, going into my last years of school, and there's already enough pressure, and if I'm doing a school production, there's already lines to learn. It was all getting a bit much. Add to the fact I was a big player in all of our sports teams and stuff. So those were the places that I really loved to express myself, if you like.
Yeah.
And it's just funny because the sports side carried on. I guess my school was one of those where sport as well as academia was that was kind of the vocation. That was where you could see yourself. We had a lot of, I always remember at our school, there was posters of some of the students who achieved national selection in whatever sport they were playing, whether it was rugby or hockey or tennis. And I always wanted to be up there as one of those because I was never going to be an Oxbridge candidate. So I always took sport on, and when I knew that I wasn't ever going to be an actual athlete, then a career in sport was, I guess, it seemed the most tangible, if you like.
Because I
But
think when you went to university was it Loughborough University you went to?
yeah.
Yeah, you did some like media projects there and radio. What was it that because you had quite an interesting experience doing theatre at school. What made you go into sports presenting in terms of doing like news round and then obviously getting a wonderful chance to be part of the Rio team as well?
Yeah, and London before that at the Olympics.
Wow.
It's mad because I always had this plan mapped out, and then around 2016 when I did Strictly, that kind of the textbook that I thought I had written out, I just ripped up. So at school, like I was saying, I knew that sport was a career that we could find jobs in, whether it was the kind of more practical stuff like being a coach or a trainer or a physiotherapist. Those were the kind of things that my school was really good at encouraging, as well as the more traditional jobs in business or in science or whatever. Those weren't the ones for me, but I knew that I loved it. I guess it was the idea. I knew that I loved performing and putting myself out there. Even though I was always quite an introverted person, I knew I could be on a stage and be comfortable. But I loved sport as well. So I was thinking, how do I bridge that? I don't necessarily think you can be a dancing rugby player. I don't think that works in the scrum. So yeah, quite quickly I identified television as a bit of a go-between. So that's when I went to Loughborough. I knew that they had these kind of extracurricular, this media club, and so that was my big idea. I played hockey a lot. I played hockey nearly to national selection. It's got so close. I was nearly one of those guys on the wall. So close. And then as it was reaching a climax, it plummeted at a speed of knots. My ability just dropped off the face of the earth. Anyway, but what was good is that I knew that I was on my way to sort of working into television in media. So that's what I put a lot of my eggs into that basket. And so I got really lucky because I was trying to make the connections within the industry. And I did a screen test for Newsround, and 2 weeks after graduating, I started as a presenter. So I was completely made up. My parents were most made up because it meant I wasn't going to be sat on my ass on the sofa at home going, I don't know, there aren't any jobs out there, Mum. What am I supposed to do? So I got very lucky. I got very lucky very quickly.
That is incredible that you were able to achieve that credit straight after graduating. I think I remember the first time I saw you was the 30th anniversary for EastEnders, and I think it's been wonderful to see you transition and do lots of different gigs on TV. But I suppose what we are all probably most familiar with is obviously Strictly Come Dancing. Can you tell us, what was it like when you first got the email or call? Like, what was it? What was that process like, being approached? There we go. He's got it. He's got it ready.
Can I just disclaimer, Dom? This lives in this room. So I didn't just pull it out because I knew we might be touching on the subject. It actually just lives down there. This is where I do my Zooms. So it just happens to live in that corner. So it's funny that you should bring it up because, oh my gosh, there's the glitter ball trophy. Do you know what? I completely missed the question.
Something I prepared earlier. No. What was it like? Just like having that? Was it a call that you received, the email? What was that process like, and how did you make that decision to take part in quite a national institution?
Easiest decision of my life. That and saying yes to my wife.
Yeah,
two very easy decisions that I was able to make. Everybody in my life knew how huge a fan of Strictly Come Dancing I was. I guess the mad thing was, so I worked in Television Centre when I was doing my early presenting. The CBBC days were the institutional sort of home of television in West London. And Strictly Come Dancing was kind of when everything stopped. You know, whatever you were doing, there was nothing bigger in town than when Strictly was on Saturday night. And I spent a lot of time kind of just dipping in and out of corridors and seeing if I could spot Bruno in his onesie, or, you know, there's Brucey going off to get a coffee, or Len, look, he's really tall. You know, there were just things that you just magnetized to it. And you know, being in that world, I know so many people that either get close to being on Strictly, or they have the conversation. You know, people wanting to be on that show, the list is as long as the world is round. So the idea of even getting close to it, you know, you're years down the track. So I remember getting a call from my agent saying that Strictly would like to have a chat.
Yeah.
And I think there have been a number of things on television that I've done in 16 and 15, and maybe, you know, that EastEnders 30th anniversary was one of them, because I didn't necessarily think I was in their realms, or even in their register. So just the idea of having a conversation with the producers, my mind was blown. I was like, I might get to do this show in, I don't know, 5 years' time. I'm on their radar. I was totally made up. So I remember having the meeting with the talent exec and the exec producer of the show. And some people go into those meetings trying to be cool about it, being like, yeah. It'd be fun. It'd be nice. It'd be nice. It'd be, you know, if I can fit it in my schedule, then I'll let you know. I was like, let me tell you everything I know. So I was obsessed with Jill Halfpenny in series 1. Do you remember watching Mark Ramprakash Skips in series 4? Jay McGuinness doing that jive in 2015 just absolutely left me on the floor. I really liked it when Darren Goff did Hey Big Spender in series 3. This was me. I just reeled them off. I reeled off all of the things that I loved about the show. I just didn't relent. I didn't hold back. And afterwards, my agent went, "How do you think it went?" I was like, I have no idea. In fact, I completely forgot what I was doing in there. I just knew there were other people that I could gas about Strictly with. And I think that must have been the April. And then in the June or the July, I was told that, in fact, my agent called and sung the theme tune down the phone. And that's when I was like, I was blown away. And I get, you know, it's a childhood dream, because there aren't many things that, you know, you can't necessarily work towards. I've always been a big believer that, you know, you can achieve anything if you put your mind to it, you work really hard, you've got amazing people around you. But there are some things that you can only dream of. One of them, Jed, I've said this on other outlets, so this isn't me just gushing, is getting married. I always wanted to get married to the person that I want to spend the rest of my life with. But you can't work towards getting that. You can't I'm going to work towards marrying you. That's a real put off on your first date. You know what I mean? Wow. So that was one. The other one was being on Strictly, because you can do everything, but they might not choose you because of whatever reason. The mix of the group, it might not be your year. So it was a dream come true, literally. And I think that was the idea that was in the back of my head throughout rehearsal, throughout the live show days. I was like, this is a dream, so don't let it end. And whatever you do, don't you know, put yourself completely out there. No regrets. Do everything you can. And so, yeah, that, I guess, is what carried us through.
So do you feel Strictly was quite important in terms of your artistic career, in terms of gaining new skills? Obviously, it's a national platform as well, and there's a lot of this discussion. Do you feel like you learned a lot of skills there that have kind of impacted your approach to playing roles now?
Oh, massively. What it was actually was a big eye-opener for me. And it was all, I describe as, you remember in the film Hook, where Robin Williams plays Peter Pan?
Yeah.
Right? And he's got older, he's grown up. Peter Pan never grows up, but he's grown up, he's got a family. Yeah. And then he gets a bop on the nose by Tinkerbell, the magic dust comes down, and he remembers that he was Peter Pan. He basically remembers that he can fly.
Wow.
Not comparing myself to Robin Williams in any way, but that was the kind of feeling. It almost happened live in the middle of, I think it was our Paso Doble. Yeah. When, you know, you don't want to realize that there are 12 million people watching on television and 600 people live in the room.
Yeah.
But there was a brief moment, and I think I actually forgot the step. That's how much I was thinking about it. But there was a brief moment where I thought to myself, oh my goodness, I used to love doing this. This was
Yeah.
my life as a kid when I had no responsibilities and no kind of, I could do anything. And that was what Strictly gave me. It gave me that memory that I love performing. I love being on stage, and that exhilarating feeling of, putting on a show for other people and getting that immediate reward and that feedback. There's nothing like it. And I know some people really shirk at that. They shrink and they go, "This is not for me." For me, on the other hand, I was like, "This is everything I wanted." So, which is a good thing to realize, in that moment where you've actually forgotten your step, and it could end up with you going, sorry, I don't know what I'm doing next. But something kicked in, I remembered it, and I cracked on, and the show went on, and we completed the routine, and forging my way into theatre. It was a brave move, because the previous almost 10 years that I'd been doing was just in television. A lot of it was sports based. A lot of it was live. So the idea of performing in that moment at that time was relevant.
Yeah.
But I didn't have loads of experience going into theatre. But every time I felt like I doubted myself, I was able to just go back to the experience of being on Strictly and go, right, mate, you have performed to the biggest possible audience out there. Totally. If you can do that with zero kind of warm-up, like you're picking up something that you've never done before and perform on a Saturday, then you can do theatre. You need to add some of the skills to make sure that you're not the weakest member of the team. You want to be an asset to any company. So that was really important for me, to go away, to work on my vocal, to sort of sharpen my skills, to make sure that when it came to being in the room and performing on those big nights, that everybody could rely on me. That was what I wanted to bring. So that took me a couple of years. But yeah, I knew from finishing Strictly that I needed to perform. I wasn't sure how it was going to work, but it was totally something that I was going to take on. And here we are, 5 years later.
That's so incredible that you took that time, to really hone your craft. I think a lot of, sometimes whether it's X Factor or Strictly or lots of different shows, a lot of artists just go straight. But it was really inspiring to see that you were so keen and so dedicated to honing your craft. And obviously, you got the opportunity to do curtains with Jason Manford and Carly Stenson. How did you must have received lots of different offers off the back of Strictly. How did you choose curtains to be your West End debut? Was it something about the music or the character you're playing? What was it about curtains?
There were a lot of moons that aligned for that show. The timing was amazing. I think the timing is always such again, out of your control, and you just hope that you put enough goodness and positivity into the world that things fall in line. So the timing was impeccable. I remember I was out having a meal with Carly in the April, I think it was, and her husband Danny, who of course was in our series of Strictly, and my wife, the four of us, having a lovely time. And she had been in Les Mis, and she was coming to the end of 2 years. And I remember asking her what she was up to next, and she said, "I'm doing this show called Curtains with Jason Manford," and we weren't aware of it. But she talked about it, described it, and it sounded amazing. It said it was a Canner and Ebb show, them off Chicago. You're thinking, well, this could be great. Good, really good for you. And then must have been 5 weeks later, 4 or 5 weeks later, my team got a call from the guys at Curtains saying, "Would Ori like to read for the part of Aaron Fox?" I was like, was somebody else at that meal? Was somebody in on that conversation? I'd never heard of the show before, and then within a month, I've heard of it twice. And now I'm up for the part. Jason. I worked with Jason actually, I think 2014. So at that time it was 25 years before I'd worked with him on a TV show, and we'd been good pals. So I was just like, well, that's mad, because 2 of the leads in this I already know.
Yeah.
like fairly well, like well enough. You know, a lot of the time, and most of the time when you're coming into any company, these are fresh. Everybody's fresh, and you got to work really hard to get tight so that you are in the best shape for putting on the best possible show. So the idea of the first principal role that I'm going to get in theatre is alongside two friends. I was like, this is incredible. I'm not going to sit on that because, you know, there's the whole company to get to know. But there's a lot of things, if there was any doubt or any reservations that I had about going into a room and being judged, and, you know, these are guys that have trained for 20 years and have been performing for 10 or whatever it might be. These are, you know, and we know that theatre artists, musical theatre artists, you know, these are some of the heavyweights of our industry because of what they can do and what they bring. 8 shows a week, you know, full on 2.5 hours of song, dance, and everything else. I was like, I don't want to be the worst one. so to be able to rely on that support with 2 people before we'd even started, I thought I couldn't be luckier. And I loved the piece. I thought the role of Aaron Fox was really sweet, and his character has a romance with Carly's character. And I was, again, you know, that's an easy thing to worry about because you're like, oh, I've not met this person before, but Carly and I have been close for 5 years. So, and I got Danny's blessing as well. So, do you know what I mean? So I was like, it was like everything is, we are cool to do this show.
Brilliant.
Perfect. So, yeah, it was amazing. The whole experience was incredible.
Yeah, I suppose it's just been wonderful seeing this transition, you know, from TV presenting to Strictly, and now on the West End. Lockdown came, you know, and obviously we've seen that, you know, during this time it's been a time of great reflection for all of us, you know, with the deaths of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. I wonder, in this time, has this changed your perspective of being a musical theatre artist of color? Has it, or as a Black artist, how have you found your approach to the industry in light of these events?
Yeah, it's so interesting because George Floyd's death had so many resonances way beyond what was already the most tragic event.
Yeah,
and it was crazy that in such a short time, you know, people were mourning this man and his family, and then the conversation started to be had on a wider perspective in so many different guises. Whether it was, you know, I had a conversation with my wife that I hadn't had in 10 years, you know, about being Black and having a son who was of biracial heritage.
Yeah.
And what that would mean for him, and what it's like growing up, and identity, and what that means. So within one household, let alone your street, your community, your work, your friendship group, these conversations about what it means to be Black in 2020, as it was, and beyond going forward, started to be had. And absolutely, it made a difference to how I looked at things. And I think if it didn't make a difference to everybody, because I guess what was so mad about lockdown is that despite the fact that there was so much that was taken away from us,
yeah,
we felt isolated and alone. Actually, moments like that brought everybody together. So if you were outside of that, then something was wrong, because this was a global moment. It was a real moment for change. And so we totally felt it, and it did give me an idea of some of the things that I had seen, some of the experiences that I had in my working world that I guess I'd just taken as normal. Maybe that was it. I think I just took it as normal because, you know, I grew up as the only Black family in our whole community. I was really the Black family at our school. That was normal. It was normal. I've been really fortunate, incredibly fortunate, especially, you know, the last 6 months to hear some of the harrowing stories that people have been through. But I've been incredibly fortunate that I haven't been the victim of those kinds of abuse. So that blatant, obvious, in your face racial abuse, I haven't suffered it. But then you kind of look to the minutiae of things, and not saying that I'd ever turn back time or that things would have been differently had this happened or had this been in consideration. But I think just as society, there is a certain formula, and if that formula is okay and people are happy with it, it's not going to change. When you start thinking, actually, some people are being misrepresented, they are being undersold, they are being underappreciated. But if you start adding that into the mix, you realize that the original formula was wrong, and that has to change. And I think, I've always gone into a room and noticed if there were any other faces of ethnic minority heritage. I've always noticed it because it's been so rare. And I think that's the mad thing. I've noticed it because of it. There's obviously a connection and closeness, but too often it's been because, oh, you're here as well. Okay, cool, fab. So there's more than one. Fab.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
The day when you go into a room and you don't notice anybody, you just want to create together because you're there for one reason, and that's to make an amazing art or whatever it might be. That's what we want to get to. So yes, it did kind of shine a light for me on some of the rooms that I had been in growing up, and in work, in television and in theatre. And I do feel like there has been a slow change, and I think everybody was really conscious. They didn't want it to be a flash in the pan, that June, July, August wasn't just put a black square out on your Instagram. And I do feel like there is kind of a glacial pace of change, which is better than nothing. But obviously, things, they're moving in the right direction, but there's still lots to do. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's such a really fresh perspective. I think, going into a room and just being able to create will be one thing that is we're definitely looking forward to, and it's great to see a lot of change and experiences. I wonder, have there been, with a lack of representation, have there been any particular musical theatre composers or any musicals that have inspired you?
Wow.
I know you've done obviously you've done a Kanda and Neb, which is an amazing composer, but are there any other ones that
do you know what? I was gutted actually, because my first foray into musical theatre, and actually it would have been a West End show, at the start, I forget what year we are in right now, Dom. So I lose myself. We've missed one. We just skipped one from 19 to 21.
This is it.
I think it would have. So in 2019, my first foray would have been the Fats Waller musical, Ain't Misbehaving.
Yes.
And it would have been working with my friend Oti Mabusa, who was doing the choreography, and it was her first venture into musical theatre. And it was going to be a small group of us. They did it. They eventually did it, and I was away, so I couldn't be a part of it, which was such a shame. But I remember going through the dialogue and going through the numbers and going, well, not only was it really hard, I thought it was really. I've basically just been singing Britney Spears for the last 10 years, maybe 20. And now I'm potentially doing this, but knowing though that just feeling the music and hearing the melodies and going, this is a beautiful piece of work. And I was so excited to potentially bring it to life, but it wasn't to be, as is sometimes the way. I'm a huge fan of Nat King Cole.
Nice.
Huge fan of Nat King Cole. And I think all it takes is for one person on Facebook to go, your voice reminds me of Nat King Cole. I'm like, I'm done. That's me. I am finished. That is retirement, and thank you very much for the laughs. He's a massive inspiration, and I if there was ever any if there was ever an example of someone who, where the chips are completely stacked against you succeeding, and that time that he was doing his thing and the circumstances of his world and being in America and, you know, going to the Nat King Cole history, but, you know, family wasn't straightforward for him where he grew up, and even being a black performer wasn't straightforward. But the legacy of the band at a time when people like him just essentially didn't have any credence at all, to still be out there as one of the greatest performers of all time, let alone one of the greatest black performers of all time, is really inspirational. And you feel that in the music. It feels a privilege to hear his music, because it's like diamond work, because it has been chipped away at a time of darkness, and there it is shining through all these years later. So yeah, I'd definitely put him up as a huge inspiration.
Beautiful. So hopefully we'll get a jukebox Nat King Cole, and you'll be starring in it.
You write it, Dom. I'll be there.
There we go. It's been so lovely to chat, and I know you've got some special news coming up that we would love to share with our.
Are we allowed?
Yes.
Yeah. So I only had the fitting for this 2 days ago, Dom. So this is fresh. Wow. The suspenders are fresh. Yeah, I'm going to be performing in the latest version of the Rocky Horror musical.
Wow.
Starring as Brad Majors. And this is a show that, I mean, who doesn't love Rocky Horror? The feeling of that show coming back on the road, and hopefully, you know, I'm talking to a man I don't need to explain it to, but the idea of theatres being open again, we could be here next week. Let's just assume, God willing, and everything goes well. Yeah. So the idea of coming back to a show in Rocky Horror being the show that people get to come back and express themselves with and have fun and lose themselves, that was the number one sell for me, to be back in that show. Yeah. But as a character and as a piece of work, you know, the last show I did was playing Aaron Fox, a quite uptight, you know, sort of passive aggressive guy with a big heart, just wants to be loved, you know, in a beautiful kind of romantic role. From that to play Brad Majors and Rocky Horror, do you know what I mean? We're going. It's just that, and that I love that because that kind of Canada musical, I think you would go, yeah, I see that. Playing in Rocky Horror, that I'm looking forward to. Really? Okay, really? And then going, yes, really. This is how it looks. That I cannot wait for that. For that to be a reality. So yes, Rocky Horror is the next venture. We're going on the road. We're going to be hopefully starting in the summer, all going well, and then that's it. That's what's been I've been looking forward to for quite some time. So yeah, please come. If you're watching, please come. It's going to be this. You know the show. It's going to be a party.
Most definitely. We are so excited for you. It's going to be great to see that versatility and approaching different roles. We're so excited, and thank you so much for joining us in the room. It has been an absolute treat and delight to get to know some of the secrets and the treasures of your career. But before we end, I would love to do a little quick round of opposites, if you're up for it.
Hit me, come on, let's do it. Let's play the game.
You ready? Are you ready? Yeah. Okay, I don't know if I'm ready. Here we go. Phantom or Les Mis?
Les Mis.
Scone or scone?
Oh, it's a scone. Definitely a scone.
Okay. McDonald's or Burger King?
King burgers. Actually, no, Burger King. King. apart from chicken nuggets, but yeah, I don't get those. That's a tricky one. KFC. Can I say KFC?
Let's do that. Let's do that. Strictly or X Factor.
Come on, Dom.
I know.
With the questions.
I know. Weber or Sondheim?
Oh, I was not aware of Sunday in the Park with George before I auditioned for a role in it. Didn't get it, but okay. I could listen to that score on repeat for 50 weeks of the year.
I could probably as well.
That maybe is the most recent discovery that I have come across. So that feels like it's skewing it in a Sondheim way. This isn't a quick round anymore. I'm so sorry. No. I have to. If you asked me that maybe 5 months ago, I would have said Weber, but I'm saying Sondheim right now. Sorry, AWL. I met him. Strictly, it takes two the other week.
Just a few more. Pasta or pizza?
Pizza. Oh, every time.
Swimming or diving?
So, I don't really do much of either, but I'm happy to wallow in a pool if that's what you'd like me to do.
Shakespeare or Dickens?
Shakespeare.
Custard creams or bourbons?
Oh, I'm not a fan of either, Dom. That's severe bourbon, probably just because it sounds like the drink.
Okay, good. I'm with you on Sondheim because he's my recent discovery, but then ALW is like my childhood. Like I'm always like, which one?
I know.
But they're both born on the exact same day, 22nd of March, about 16 years apart. Which is very
interesting. They 20?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, very interesting. But anyway, lovely to chat with you. We wish you all the best with Rocky Horror, and we look forward to our next chat.
Thanks, Dom. I'm looking forward to working with you again very soon, brother. Thank you very much for talking to us, mate. It's genuinely a real pleasure. And let's hope that everything gets back to what we knew we loved only a few short months ago. So looking forward to it.
Most definitely. All right. I'll speak to you soon, yeah?
Take care, buddy.
Take care. Bye-bye.